there, in order to create our classic bouquet today, the first thing we're going to need to do is stem our flowers. So a little dab of hot glue on the back of your flower, hold that wire about 1.5 inches or so from the end, and then a gentle twist and push in. If you have a flower that's got a back that's too long, trim that down just a little bit so that you make sure that the wire gets into the main part of the flower and that it is sturdy and it isn't going to break off while you're creating. This one even had a bottom that was too thin, but cutting it does the same thing. I can find a spot when I do that, and if you need to, you can always add a little extra hot glue. So I have got all of my flowers all set here. So we are going to take the flowers and we are going to create our bouquet. So I always start with this triad, the 3 flowers kind of coming together. I usually do one of each, but you could change, actually, you'll see later on that I would have changed this, and I probably would have done one of the pink flowers again in the middle and spread the white flower out. But what I like to do is I like to alternate. In this case, I have 9 flowers and I have 3 of each, so I kind of work my way around. And once I did a little taping off there just so I don't have to worry about holding it, and then I'm going to do the next circle around. With my extra small bouquet, it's 9 flowers, and so I just do that 3 in the center, and then I do my other 6 around those, and there'll be some spaces, but that's okay. If you're going to do a larger size bouquet, then you're going to work up from there and you're going to do another circle around this circle. What you're going to notice is I'm kind of going edge to edge with the other flowers, and when I've got that basic circle done, I'm going to, again, just tape it off. You don't have to do this. It's more about your comfort factor. So now I'm going to just give my bouquet a spin. I don't love the placement of the ivory flowers since they stand out so much from the pink, so I'm going to shift them. In this case, with a small bouquet, that's easy to do. If you're doing something larger and you're doing more circles around, you'd want to make sure to stop and pause and adjust as you go. So I am moving my white anemones out to the edges so that it feels more like a triangle of those and it feels more even. You're going to see I'm just going to spin and hold that nice and tight because in the movement I kind of shifted things. Now I'm going to cut the handle. I always do 2 fists. I just do one hand and then the other hand to kind of see where that lies, and then I trim it down. You can make your bouquet handle the length that works for you or your vase. Save those cut ends because you can use them for boutonnieres or fillers. Now we are going to prep our greenery. We've got all this greenery that's going to go around the outside and some of it on the inside. I like to, on my eucalyptus like this, I've got all these leaves. They can be bunched up and I can pull them higher. Some of these leaves are a little wrinkly, so you can take a steamer to those or even an iron as well just to fix those. I like to shift my greenery up and actually pull off some pieces, and you'll see how we're going to use a couple of those. A few of these leaves are just facing a little like the wrong direction, or they're just too high for what I want in this bouquet. So I'm actually pulling off some of those little seeds and then moving that leaf down to a lower little stem. This is a lot of extra work that you don't have to do, but to get the right look, sometimes that is worth it. So these leaves we're going to take, and I'm actually going to separate them. So I'm just going to cut that bottom off. Now I'm going to take some 20 or 22 gauge wire, real thin wire, and what I'm going to do is just bend that wire over that little stem and then wrap it around itself. So you bend the wire in half over the stem and then wrap the wire around the stem and the other bent wire just to hold it in. You can also glue wire on if you prefer. I don't like that because I don't always trust the hot glue to hold the way I want. This gives me that ultimate flexibility. Now this is this ruscus, and I just stemmed the bottom because there's a little hole there when I pulled it off, and I actually trimmed that top section because you're not going to see all of it in the bouquet. So in order to make my greenery go as long as possible, if I cut this in half, I can take this little piece and do the same thing I did with the wire, where I bend it around the stem or catch it on a leaf and then wrap it around the wire and the leaf. That just gives me more bang for my buck, and it always helps your greenery go a longer way. So again, fold it in half, wrap it around the stem. So this fun Italian ruscus, I am just going to do the same thing, fold and wrap. There is a part on the bottom, and I'm going to show you. You can stem it with a short stem if you want to. So you're going to do a little hot glue right there and put that little piece of stem from before in, and we're good to go. So it's whatever way you really like best. If you don't have the lighter gauge wire for wrapping, then you can always do it the other way. So I've got all my pieces out, and this is going to go inside in these little holes in my bouquet. So this is called my filler. I'm going to slide these pieces in, and probably I would have maybe trimmed some of these stems a little because they're kind of long. So I'm just sliding it in to those different holes and adjusting. How high you want that greenery to stick up is totally up to you. If you like a little more wild look, it can come up a little higher. You can make it real neat and tidy and pull it down low. And you're just adding those wires to your stems. There's no exact science for this, as I like to do one type of greenery at a time as I'm adding these fillers. So now I'm adding in that Italian ruscus, and what's fun about this one is I can really adjust the height of it. I can also spread those little sprigs that are on each piece out, so I can make them kind of go wherever I want in any direction that I want to fill in even more space. So sliding those in right in those holes, for the most part in this small bouquet, and I do like to trim because those wires get in the way. With this smaller bouquet, there's not a lot of spaces. If you do another layer around for like my medium size or my small, then you're going to have a lot more holes to fill in, so you'll need a lot more of this filler. I kind of leave the outside for the most part for the greenery that I'm going to put around the outside. So just adding in all of those little bits. And you're like, Jen, I can't see where they're going. No, you can't, because I was in a rush when I was filming and not paying good attention. But once I snip these wires, you'll be able to see that I just kind of made those pieces go throughout. Definitely tape it off. Again, I'm using floral tape here. It sticks to itself as long as you give it a little stretch as you wind it around and wind it onto itself. Next thing we're going to do is add some filler like baby's breath. So these, sometimes they have little short stems, sometimes they have a longer stem, depending on how you broke it off the bush. So I like to break it down, and if you have a piece with a longer stem, cool, that can go right along your wire stems. I will slide it in, and then I will adjust the pieces. So some will kind of go more on the outside, some will go inside, and I can move those around. This one's shorter, has a little bit of a stem. It's not going to reach down, but the good news is at this point I put so much in, it's pretty tight in there. So just sliding that in with that little bit of stem sticking down, I have enough to grasp on. It's not going to go anywhere if I tip my bouquet upside down. And then this one, I'm breaking off those little pieces because they're not going to be seen anyway, and I can use them in something else, which you will see. And I'll slide my stem in. So with my small bouquet, I'm kind of working in like triads when I'm thinking about where filler's going, working it in, spreading out that baby's breath. Now these little pieces, if I want, I can actually add them right in between flowers if it holds tight enough, cool. If it's not going to hold good on its own, then you can add a little dab of hot glue and just a little adjusting here. So this one you'll see, I'm afraid it's not going to stay, so I'm adding a little hot glue. Then it will grab onto a leaf that's there, and I won't have to worry about it too much, especially if you do a photo where your bouquet is upside down or you fling it around a little bit. We want everything to be in there snug and secure. Thought about adding some pine cones, and then I decided against it, so toss those aside. Just keeping it simple, greenery, baby's breath, fun pink and white flowers. So now we're going to do the outside of our bouquet with all this fun greenery. So here what I really like to do is just start with one type of greenery, and I usually do anywhere from 2 to 3 kinds around the outside of my bouquet, and sometimes just one. But if I'm doing more than one kind, what I do is I alternate and kind of work around in a pattern. So I put my silver dollar eucalyptus, and then I put my Australian gum eucalyptus, and then back to my silver dollar. And you can adjust the pieces of greenery as you go, but you can do some of that after you've put it all around as well. So just bending the wires that they meet to the stems that are there. Sometimes you're going to find a leaf that just isn't sitting right. You can twist that. You can pull it off and put it back on in a different direction. You can pull it off and just toss it aside and say, oh, well, I'm not going to use that leaf. So you can see here, these ones are facing backwards, and I don't love that. So I'm giving it a little switch, and then that one fell off. So we will deal with that one later. I'll probably put that one back in. And I'm just going to continue around creating sort of the base of the bouquet. This serves 2 purposes. One, it fills with the greenery. It creates sort of like a skirt for your bouquet. It hides the wires and the mechanics of a wood flower bouquet, which is important. Unlike with a fresh flower where you've just got this pretty stem, maybe the undersides of the wood flowers aren't quite as gorgeous. So we want to hide some of that and then bring in that greenery. Once you've got all of yours around, you're going to tape it off, and you can still adjust after you've done that, as you will see. So I've got this good and wrapped. Give it a quick spin around. I go a little farther because I want to hold, add some hot glue just to make sure it holds, and then we trim those stems down so that everything is nice and even. Now, this is where we can adjust. So I'm going to fix some of these pieces of greenery. I want this leaf to go back on. So I pulled off a little seed and I am popping that leaf on in a spot that I really want it to go. Of course, it gave me a little bit of trouble. So sometimes you got to add a little hot glue to keep it in place too. Once I am happy with that, then I'm going to finish off with my Italian ruscus. This stuff is great. I pull off the bottom leaf, so I've got a little bit of a stem there, as you can see. And then it's going to be the base of my bouquet, the final piece that hides the wires. So I'm just going to place these right along the bottom. I do trim off that little bit on the end because it's thicker where it connected to the stem. And it's just going to see, as you can see, hide sort of all of that stuff on the bottom. And with a bouquet this size, I'm just using 3 pieces. I did do a little wrap with the tape. Sometimes if I'm using electrical tape, I don't have to wrap quite as much. The pieces cover because you can spread them out, but use as many as you need. And then a good wrap just to kind of cover up the stems and make it easy for us to twine or ribbon. It looks good, right? So pretty simple. If anything got shifted, you can trim those wires a little more if you need to. Other than that, we are ready to put our handle wrap on. So you can use that twine where you can spin and go down, but I'm going to show you how to do this with a ribbon just because I know that's a little bit trickier. So we are going to take our ribbon and we're going to do a little dab of hot glue at the top to hold it. And then you are going to spiral that ribbon down. Spin, spin, spin. I like to spin the bouquet. I put my ribbon on the floor so that's free flowing. When I get to the bottom, I add a little dab of hot glue, wrap it around itself, and then you're going to spiral it back up. This is to get a nice smooth finish on the ribbon. When I get to the top, I'm going to wrap it around and then I angle the ribbon. I don't do a great job of showing you this, but I kind of fold the top so that it fits flat and it's not angled. And then I will give it a trim just so I don't have that extra ribbon hanging out. A little hot glue because I've folded that ribbon over a little, so I need to hot glue that piece down. And once I've done that, I did not use good ribbon scissors, so I've got some frayed edges. I do a little dab of hot glue and then I fold over the edge. If you have nice ribbon scissors, you might not need to do that. And then once I've folded that, have a nice edge, add another dab of hot glue, fold it over and hold. If you're not happy with how this looks, cut a nice piece of ribbon and just do one more wrap just around the top to make it even. You can see the ribbon's good, the bouquet is done, and voila, classic bouquet.